Hey, everybody. Same as it ever was. Same as it ever was. Same as it ever was. Letting the weeks go by and the Browns still sucking dick. Letting the games go by. Yeah, we're sucking donkey dick in. Okay, enough talking heads. I'm a talking head. You're a talking head. We're all here to mourn. Yeah, what can I tell you? It's all fucked up, man. But the good news, look who's back. Derek Frisbee. We were talking about you the other day, Derek. What's going on?
I feel like I just got kicked in the balls.
I don't take this nearly as seriously as I used to, because here's the truth, all right? So that everybody knows what the truth is. It may be the truth that will be unspoken, but the Steelers will always beat the Browns until Ben Roethlisberger's gone, which won't be that much longer, and the Cleveland Browns actually have a full football team. And I think that this is, I'm sorry, Bronk, but your prediction actually sucked as bad as the Browns today.
I was just kidding.
Opposite. It was the exact opposite.
I was just kidding when I said, what happens if the Steelers go in and monkey stomp the Browns?
Yeah, well, I guess this would qualify as monkey stomping.
Yeah.
And Derek, poor Derek.
Hey, we could throw it in the Vikings today.
Yeah,
we got beat by an undefeated team, not a team that hadn't had a win yet.
Well, it doesn't matter. When you get beat like this, you get beat like this. And, poor Derek picked his return to the show. We were exchanging Facebook messages, and it was kind of like, Twitter. Hey, why don't you jump in and join us? But I had no idea it would be like this. I mean,
that's what happened. That's to blame. It's fucking
Hey, sometimes you just you're in it together, bad and good. So...
Well, there's nothing that you can really do, and you're just not as good as they are. And you've not been as good as they are for decades, and you're not even close now. Not even close. And there's nothing about this game that would tell me that they're even close. That's the troubling part of it, is that you can say, oh, Baker hurt his ribs. It didn't matter. You could have put anybody. King Kong would have gotten injured back there. My goodness. It was, let's put this in kind of a sequence of order of accountability, so that, and I'll tell you now what Stefanski's going to say, and I'll do it for you using my really cool device here, so you can... let's see what we can do. Okay, here you go. Here's a voice, an effect that you'll enjoy. Well, it starts with me. And we didn't really call a good game. The plays weren't really a good call, and I take my hats off to the Steelers, because the Steelers really played well. I could take the effect off and go,
and the Steelers, really, I could basically do the same thing, except in a more nasal fashion.
And so you're going to get the same bullshit talk, okay, out of this, which is, well, I'm first in line. And then, boy, there's a lot of people who have some answering to do, but I'll do the answering for you. First and foremost, we came out with the wrong game plan, throwing from the pocket. And we talked about that on the halftime show. Second of all, the offensive line did not perform, and I blame 90% of the issues on the offensive line, simply because they were supposed to be a strength of this team, and they got butthurt out there, and they outmanned. And what can you do? You're that's the strength of your team. They went right at our strength and destroyed it. So once that went away, there was nothing else behind it. So let's put Stefanski first, because the scripted plays were poor and strategy-wise poor. Second of all, the offensive line, because it couldn't open holes for anybody and it couldn't protect the quarterback. 3, Baker Mayfield, who I will do now my best Baker Mayfield impression using my precious effects device. And here we go.
and lots of ows.
Yeah, I mean, the one ball he threw up in the air, he literally he ran away and threw it up in the air and went, ah! The mics picked it up.
Didn't this feel like last year's offensive line today?
Yeah, it sure did. It
gosh.
really did. And when when I saw, number 74 in the field, it was like, one of those acid flashbacks. It was like, yeah, it's like, yeah, we were going backwards. And, every 4th and 1, they tackled us for a loss. I mean, it's like, the offensive line, it wasn't that there was a stand-up. They were getting pushed backwards, literally. So with that, I'm going to say the offensive line was not ready to play. The Steelers were ready to play. The Steelers were psyched up, coached up, and the Cleveland Browns came in with this winning streak and maybe thought they're better than they are. And we've had this discussion for decades, and they got their ass handed to them. The problem now, and as far as accountability beyond that, it really doesn't matter. You could say that the secondary, for allowing the Steelers to just literally throw the deep ball a couple times, but realistically, once it was 17-0, the game was over. The Browns had no chance of scoring any points, and this is going to be, again, what you're going to get from the fans, and that is inaccurate. It's the kind of thing, I mean, Johnny Manziel can't play professional football. Baker Mayfield has won 4 out of 6 games this year and has a winning record as a starting quarterback at this point, or a 500 record, somewhere in that range. And that can't be said of Johnny Manziel. But the fact is that Baker Mayfield is not the kind of guy who's going to pull the fat out of the fire and do this on his own. He lacks the physical credentials, and playing hurt, it just wasn't there. And the requisite talent is not there. And what you're seeing in a game like this, and without sounding overly negative about all this, because I don't want to come off this way, is that this is the drafting process. When you start seeing guys like Dupree and guys like Claypool, and you start seeing these guys showing up on the radar who are great young players, and I don't mean good, I mean great. All right, great. And you look at us, and we're still, got Sheldon Richardson and shit like that out there. I mean, to be very honest with you, when a team drafts properly and gets what they need and knows what they're looking for, it puts them light years ahead of other teams who are like the Jets and the Redskins and the Browns, who always have a high first-round pick, fuck it up 75% of the time. And then nobody talks about the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round picks that never develop into anything in Cleveland. And the fact that we've never had a good linebacker in Cleveland since Clay Matthews. We don't hear about this stuff. Jameer Miller. We don't hear this stuff because we're not really being critical. We'd rather be like this guy and just say, it's Baker Mayfield, he just say Johnny Manziel. Well, the bottom line is,
Moo, I don't know if you were thinking the same thing as me, but one thing, just watching this week, trying to get a read on where he's at, when he wasn't throwing in that practice while the media was there, that tells you everything you need to know. They did not want you to see where he's at. And, as the week went on, slowly they showed a little bit more and more. But I went into this game thinking he's a lot more hurt than what they're going to say. And I think, he is to blame. for certainly his fair share. But this offensive line is built off of the run game into the play action. The run game was shut down, and they didn't try play action. They didn't try screens. They tried making him a Peyton Manning, drop back quarterback. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's amazing to me, and Jeffrey, you're right. It doesn't matter if the Browns' offensive line is not functioning cohesively. The team has no chance of winning because the defense is going to give up points because we're just not talented enough because of what I was just talking about our lack of drafting ability. And the more you play good teams, and I want everyone to realize that what I've been saying up to this point in the season is I think I've been spot on about this. The Browns are in the vast middle of the NFL, and we just played an elite team. And they're an undefeated team, and they're an undefeated team for a reason. And they are the best team this day that the Browns have faced all year. They look better than the Ravens did. They really do. I mean, the Browns weren't ready to play week 1, but the Browns should have been ready to play this game, and the Steelers just flat out took it to them. And, and I'm not a Steelers fan. Y'all know that. But at 5-0, they're for real. And
how much of it do you think is a mental thing?
I don't, the mental thing is going to be determined next week and the week after and the week after because this bubble has been burst. I mean, the team has been exposed. I mean, that if you're firing off the ball and, taking away Kevin Stefanski's basic, simple offense that takes away. I mean, why do you think Joe Hayden was pretending like he was going back in his zone and basically just running up? Because he knew that the defensive line was going to charge the quarterback. The quarterback was going to make the first read. They took the first read away on every single pass play. Baker ate the ball and took punishment or threw it in the hands of the Steelers because there was nobody open in those situations. And teams are going to say, well, let's analyze what they're doing, the Browns, over the course of the first 6 weeks. And they're going to say, well, this is where they're going with the ball. We're going to take that away from them. And the fact is that it's almost like a disruption in your electric service, where the lights go on, the lights go off, the entire continuity of the team was disrupted because it was taken away. And that's clever defensive coordination. And again, it's having the players to be able to do that.
This is the sort of game that can cause a 3-game losing streak. And we got to see how they come out against the Bengals. I mean, the Bengals just blew a game against the Colts.
That's unbelievable. They were up so far in that game. They were up 21-0. 21-0. They let Phillip Rivers come back on them. That's amazing.
And then, but the thing about today's game that nobody's mentioned yet, but we'll get to it, is that no one talked about Myles Garrett. No one talked about anything on the defense today. And we got beat by their fucking offensive line.
Yeah.
We got fucking killed. And you could stop them properly.
Sean, the bottom line is that, the coach will say, well, we felt that Baker was good enough to be able to start and play the game, but it wouldn't have mattered. If you would have put in your second-string quarterback, and this would have happened, people would have been screaming, why didn't you play your first-string quarterback if he practiced? There's no winning. The team didn't put out the effort. The team was beat up.
Keenum did not look good. He looked less talented than Baker did for that.
Keenum is not Joe Montana. People have got to realize no matter how bad Baker Mayfield is, Case Keenum will not be the savior. We can talk about future all you want, but he's not going to come in and he's not going to get you to the playoffs and he's not going to win you the Super Bowl. He's been on 2 teams since he's been in Minnesota, and guess what? He's failed. Get over thinking he's the superstar.
Right. But this is the mentality. Next man up, which is what we preach for injuries, is the fans' chant for quarterback in Cleveland for the past several decades.
Well, it's irrelevant. It's not going to make any difference.
No, Baker Mayfield's the quarterback of the team, should be the quarterback of the team. What's really disappointing to me is that the offensive line, knowing that their quarterback was in this kind of physical shape,
They let him
played.
get killed.
They just didn't do anything. They were powerless, and it was really this is the kind of thing that is troublesome. The teams look at this film and they're going to see what the Steelers did, and they're going to, those tight end throws and quick out passes were not there. They weren't there.
Not only that, go back to when Case Keenum did come into the game. What did you start seeing? Screens, tight end screens. You didn't see that with Mayfield in there. Why? Well,
it's a good question, and and again, this is what we talked about at halftime. The scheme coming out in the game was completely confusing, and again, it's like, I'm going to do another boxing analogy, and if you are, Muhammad Ali, and you're fighting George Foreman, the fearsome George Foreman. And what you're going to do against George Foreman is you're not going to walk right out and start slugging with George. If you watch the first round of the Zaire fight, Ali actually peppers him with shots and just kind of angers Foreman. And after that amazing 80-whatever-inch reach that Muhammad Ali had, keeping his arms up and blocking the punches, some with his sides and his bodies, tired him out, and he took him out later in the game. But he had a strategy that he went to. But you can't say that our strength is our offensive line and our running game, and then turn around and start the game by pocket passing when you've acknowledged that you've got to get Baker out on the corners to throw. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. And I know what
Baltimore.
I know what you're saying, Sean. Why would you play a guy with your future who is obviously damaged goods is a fair enough question. And I can't answer that. What I can question more formulatively is, why would you put a quarterback into a game plan that clearly does not take advantage of his skill set? And we see that Baker is diminished in the pocket. We all know now Baker Mayfield is not the big future that the Cleveland Browns are hoping for. Baker Mayfield at his best is a game management quarterback, a slow, undersized quarterback who does have a big heart and obviously is willing to take some licks, but is not what we thought when he was taking the league by surprise coming off the bench. He is instead a guy who, if he reins in his inner Brett Favre and and follows the game plan, when the game plan sucks like it did today, you see what happens to Baker Mayfield. And you see what happens to the offensive line, too, because now they're suddenly running plays they're not so good at blocking for.
Do you watch OBR? Do you know what OBR is?
The Orange and Brown Report?
Yeah. When he's broken down the games that Baker's played, normally his feet and his eyes are in the right spots. He's just not making the throws because he's hesitating. So that tells me it's a mental problem. I don't know if that can be fixed.
Yeah, and I'm not a fun guy. Cleveland Sports Radio is insufferable. I would end with that. It's not necessarily just after a loss. I mean, come on. Anybody who would, the people, I'm not overly impressed with what I hear on the radio. And it isn't the idea of bitching, pissing, and moaning. Baker Mayfield is better than what we've had, all right? Because other quarterbacks weren't able to, have a scheme and run it to get us to 4-2. So I'm not going to sit there and bitch about it. We know what his shortcomings are. And his shortcomings will eventually doom the Cleveland Browns to 500 mediocrity, and he will be just another Ryan Fitzpatrick kind of guy, except in game management mode. He's going to be the kind of guy who hurts himself more than he needs to, and being a game manager, throwing 2 picks like that, it kills you. It absolutely kills you. He has to play a clean game for the Browns to really have a good chance of winning, and he can't turn the ball over. And unfortunately, that's what happened. And you take away his primaries, and you rely on the coach for whatever reason if you're the other team. And I have to believe that it's the same reason that Michael Spinks, coming up from light heavyweight, would say, I'm going to go after Mike Tyson in the first round. He committed suicide. And I think that that's what Stefanski did. It's like maybe he didn't want the whole world to see that if he came out just running the football, that his team was overmatched. And so maybe he wanted to try to get a little slick and tricky-dicky with it. But that's just not, you go with your strength, and if your strength isn't good enough, you still protect your quarterback, you run the ball, you get shut out. But you don't do what this team did. It's a bad course of action. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, if we have no turnovers, we probably lose that game 20-3, instead of 38-7.
That's right.
Yeah, I think we would take that at this point. But, that's what we did. If we ran the ball and punted the ball 8 times, which is like what we should have done. I mean, every time, how is it that we have a 4th down and every time we lost yardage? It's just, I've never seen that before.
But because, I've watched the Browns for decades. They have the offensive line was put into a position where things were so one-dimensional that, what it amounted to, if the Browns were throwing from the pocket, then the Steelers took away the middle, and the receivers are not clearly good enough to get down the field. Jarvis Landry is limping. I'm sorry. He's hurt. And the fact is that he's not getting separation. Odell Beckham is good for a complaint on the sideline, but there isn't time for the quarterback in this kind of a situation to get the ball that far down the field. And, what you wind up with is a quarterback looking at one particular person to get it out quick, and that one person is getting jumped every time. And it happened over and over and over again. So
Marcus Mariota is a fucking joke, San Juan Creole butthole. Jesus Christ.
Oh, okay.
You gotta be kidding me.
Well, don't engage this guy. He's back in timeout. I just put him in timeout. He's a one note guy who's just trying to inflame people.
Hey, Moo.
Yeah.
I heard you talking about this a couple of weeks ago. You talked about Baker is still developing within the system. And right. I do think that is true, but I think, what you see like against the Ravens week 1, obviously you get blown out. It looked nothing like what you wanted it to. And then you see from then on to now, to me, it seems like there have been improvements game by game. Maybe best case scenario maybe is just there's still a lot of room to develop. You know what I mean?
Well, again, I don't expect in a short season without practicing a new system that everything is. It's like I said last week, the Browns system is pretty dumbed down, and I thought that was very smart. I think that if you try to run a whole package of things that people have never run before, you're really going to end up with a mess. And I think by running simple, direct, well-executed plays and not giving up foolish penalties and sacks, the team did pretty well. But now you can see what happens.
Speaking of penalties, the penalties were even today, 6-6.
And the difference in the game is that the Steelers defense took that simple scheme away from the Cleveland Browns. And you have to figure out what there is for you. I mean, you're still going to be able to beat some lower to middle teams. But right now, if this were the stock market, and of course the stock market is an always fluid, liquid, moving thing. And, there's buy time and sell time. But right now, I would say the Cleveland Browns are, I hope you sold them last week because, when a team is exposed this way in a nationally televised game where they're supposed to be competitive in the game and is completely non-competitive, it makes you see how far away you are from the elite teams. And we're back in a situation where just like, we're watching, the Colts. How good can the Colts be if they fell behind the Bengals 21-0? I mean, we're looking at the teams that we've already beaten, and I'm asking, reasonable questions like none of these teams are very good. And every good team we've played, two of them, it hasn't been close. So, we're hoping, we're willing our team to be better. But the bottom line is that every time we have a chance to show that we could take one, even half a step up and be competitive with an elite team, we're getting pied in the face. And, it's tough.
Well, we don't have to worry about being on national TV again until the Ravens night game, because every other game is a 1 o'clock game. So they're not going to show us.
Here's a couple of things, Becky, Chuck. One thing. Teller is a good offensive lineman, but if you're in a situation like the Browns were in, they should have been running the ball and protecting the quarterback's flank, quite literally.
Yeah, and punting when you punt,
I don't understand. When we were down 10-0 and we ran the ball successfully a couple of plays, and then on third down, we just abandoned the run and the pocket pass, which was a disaster. It just didn't make sense to me. The only chance the Browns would have would be to try to wear somebody down and maul them up front. But once you get behind like that, charge. I mean, the defensive line is going to be able to sell out and not worry about the run.
This game reminded me of the 49ers game from last season, where that defensive line up front just absolutely bullied the Browns offensive line, and Baker had nowhere to go. And you seen him make a bunch of mistakes in that game, just like this one. And he got beat up.
Reggie, I don't think it's all in our head because it happened on the field. And, I would say that if they were just a better team and won, like I expected the Steelers, I picked the Steelers to win 27-14. I expected the Steelers to win. I wanted the Browns to at least make a decent accounting of themselves. But a mental issue? No, this is a physical issue because they just got pushed around like rag dolls. And you can say that that's caused by some psychological feelings of inefficiency or, whatever. But no, I don't think that it's a mental issue. I think that they were outcoached, outplayed, outperformed. The Steelers were playing 100 miles an hour and we were playing 75. And it doesn't make sense in the great scheme of things. And the way the game started out, what confidence is the offensive line going to have when Baker's right back in the pocket every play and they're getting whooped on like this? There was no chance for the offensive line to ever feel good about themselves because they were immediately put into a situation where the game was taken away from them what they do best. I think it's a bad job by Stefanski in game prep as far as the scripted plays. And by the time that's all over with, the game's over. It's the genie's out of the bottle and it's done. It's unfortunate. Mike Tomlin on Fitzpatrick's pick six, I think it sent a message to them. The third down wasn't going to be easy sledding today. Well, I mean, what it told me is that when you throw to a double covered rookie tight end, throw the ball behind him, that Minka Patrick or my dead grandfather could have stepped in front of that and run it into the end. I don't quite understand, Tomlin can say what Tomlin's going to say. But again, the fact is that's a poorly thrown ball. And right off the bat, you ask yourself, is there pain when he's throwing the ball? Is he restricted because of the flak jacket or whatever they call that he was wearing underneath? Who knows? The ball was late. It was a full yard behind the receiver. And had the ball been laid out in front of the receiver, Fitzpatrick jumping in, the ball would have actually gone wide of everybody. It was an ill-advised throw, stared down into double coverage. So, Mike Tomlin can say what he wants. He's a fool that way. He's obviously a better head coach at this point than Kevin Stefanski, based upon he seems to know what his team does best. And the thing is, we never got a chance.
But look at the longevity he's had in that job, too. Stefanski's been there for 6 minutes. He's been there for 16 years. There's a big fucking difference.
Yeah, well, and we never put Roethlisberger under the microscope because they never had to do anything. They just sacked us and got the ball back and ran at will and passed at will and took their couple of shots downfield that were always there. And we never had to make them account for themselves in any way. So this is what was taken away, Alistair. Honestly, what was taken away is that you didn't see Hooper open. You didn't see Harrison Bryant open. And you didn't see the offensive line. How do you open up holes when you're being pushed 2 yards backwards? I mean, that's what we didn't see. We need to, but if we're not good enough, because and now you see it doesn't matter because the Steelers know. The Steelers know that if they ramp up and play at the speed and the ability level that they're capable of, the Browns have no chance. And the Browns know that too. And Freddie Kitchens draw the plays up in the dirt kind of thing is going to be able to fight off a team that is just literally outpowered from the get-go. Everything that we perceived as our strength, they were stronger than. So these two teams could play 10 times and the Steelers will win 10 times because we're just not built to beat this. But we're not built to beat the Ravens either. We're not built to beat a lot of teams, to be very honest with you. I give Stefanski all the credit in the world for being 4-2, and I give the rest of the credit to these stupid owners who keep fucking up their drafts as bad as we do and joining the ranks of the likes of the Jets and the Redskins and the Browns. And it's like the rich are getting richer, and there's this drop. It's almost like a lead weight that's pushing everybody down, and the few teams that are going up. And by the way, don't tell me Bill Belichick's still a genius. Cam Newton. Yeah, Cam Newton is not Tom Brady, in case you didn't notice. 2-3 now. Losing record starting to look like when Bill Belichick coached who? The Jets. The Jets. Betty and the Jets. Betty and the Jets.
And the Broncos only scored field goals, folks. 18 points, 6 field goals.
That's right.
That's it.
But there's a drop-off, and the vast middle is a vast middle. It is anyone's ball game. And yes, the Bengals can beat the Browns next week. Yes, the Browns could beat the Bengals next week, but it's all bunched up in the middle. What's the final on that Cincinnati score?
31-27 Colts.
That's just too bad for Cincinnati because they scored enough points to win, but they let they let a veteran quarterback beat them in the end.
By the way, the post-game pressers have been going on. There isn't really anything worth a damn being said other than Stefanski admitting this game plan sucked and Baker's claiming his rib injury didn't affect his performance, but other than that,
sure.
Well, you know what it's like. It's like asking Donald Trump or Joe Biden about anything. It's like you're not going to get an answer. They just ignore you and just say whatever it is they're going to say. I mean, and nobody's going to sit there. Baker's not going to say, "Oh my God, were my ribs hurting?" I mean, he's not going to say that.
Well, I think the one thing you can take away from this and feel good about is at least we've seen this team recover from this same beating before. So at least we can cross our fingers and hope the same.
Well, that's a very good point because who knows what's going to happen. Like we were all worried about is this big losing streak that can happen after a game like today.
The Ravens barely beat the Eagles 30-28. How about
that? They had to hang on for that.
They won. But they won. And Baker cannot get and right, Reggie. We can't get the ball to OBJ. But then again, with limping Jarvis and slow tight ends, And you tell me who is going to take the attention off of OBJ. Who's the threat? I mean,
hey, and Moo,
Yep.
you were right. You talked about in the halftime about needing a speed receiver. Go back to I know it's college and it's the Big 12, whatever. But, I mean, look at Hollywood Brown. That was his speed guy, and he was wide open half the time. You know, you need that speed guy to take the top off. That's what Callaway was until he got back on the weed.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't keep a defense honest deep, everything compacts. And against a scheme like, Stefanski's scheme, which is a compacted scheme, what you're trying to do is free up wide receivers in a phone booth. There's just no space. And, again, Washington on a double move broke free 10 yards behind the Browns secondary. Claypool on the one, it was a perfect throw. I thought Mitchell was pretty well step by step with him, but it was perfectly thrown.
That Claypool is a pretty electric receiver too.
Yes, he is. He's big.
I don't know where the Steelers found him, but boy, how
Notre Dame. They found him out of Notre Dame, and he probably didn't. He didn't do dick at Notre Dame because Notre Dame barely won, and they were playing. I think our sister of the Immaculate Hand Job. Go ahead.
Just to reinforce your point, the Steelers draft Claypool second round, and we get fucking Brian Robisky. So we get Grant Delpit, We just get some fucking abortion in the second round every fucking year.
You can't keep drafting badly and expect to win, especially. And I think what's being
picked, by the way.
Yeah, what's being said in the chat room that I think is the most accurate thing is that we're just not built yet for our own division. And that's the fact that you play 6 games in your own division and 4 of them you cannot win.
Chubb wouldn't have made a difference, San Juan Grill, by the way. Chubb
it wouldn't have made any difference. The holes weren't even there.
Maybe 7 more points, but that's so you lose 38-14.
Chubb might have gotten hurt this week. If he played.
Oh, yeah, good point.
And, and the truth is that we're a power running club, and Kareem Hunt is a different kind of running back. And but what we didn't see is really Kareem Hunt catching passes. You see, everything was taken away. Anything that was short, that would be a high percentage kind of play and keep the ball moving and the clock running, was taken away from the Browns. They said to the Browns, we're going to dare you to throw the ball down the field. And for 2 reasons. 1, we don't think that you can stop our pass rush. And 2, we don't think your receivers are for dick. We're just going to cover the short route guys that you always seem to throw to. And, we're just you're not going to have the time to throw the ball. And that's exactly what happened,
Hey, Moo, going back to the Delpit pick, it's clear to see that Sendejo was clearly not the one they had in mind to fill this role because everything that he's doing, I mean, he's 10 yards off of the receiver he's covering. Delpit can fly. I don't know if he will be able to after this injury. That's still yet to see. Guys recover and some guys don't. But they clearly did not go into the season thinking that Andrew Sendejo was going to be their starter, and it has cost them bad.
Obviously, all the guys back there except for Ward are special team players, basically. They all belong on special teams. Mitchell maybe is good enough to play on
and Harrison plays good, and then he gets hurt.
Yeah.
Big
game next week. They got to come back. They got to try to come back.
You just can't win with what we had on the field. But again, the defense of the opposition is going to take into account what the team in front of them can do and what they can't do. And you got to take away what they can't do. And the fact is that if you leave it in Baker's hands to have to go off of his primary read and look downfield, he's not feeling the pass pressure. He's staying in the pocket too long, holding onto the ball too long. I noticed that today, again, he was patting the ball, which is always a bad sign for him, like the double clutch.
He's not trusting what he's seeing.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I saw there was the one play that where he was sacked, and I keep going back to the play where Jarvis. It was a third down play, and Jarvis Landry had run a quick out and then was going to cut back in the middle. And instead of trusting what he saw when the pocket was collapsing and throwing the ball to where Jarvis was supposed to be, he ended up eating it because he didn't trust what he saw. And when that happens, you have no chance whatsoever because that's the connect. That second that it takes for you to connect, it's too late. You're sacked. You've got to make the defense pay. And if you hold on to the ball, it's going to be you who pays.
And if he can switch that, if he can take care of that problem and make the throws that he's seeing, he could be a lot better player. He could be a lot better player, but he's not.
No, and this is basically the reason you want to dare Baker to go downfield is because he has that swagger and he has that instinct, and you want to appeal to the worst instinct in that player because you're going to get the turnovers that you need, and that's exactly what happened. It is. Let's see what Justin's saying. Now, let's be real. The Steelers' backup linebackers and secondary are starting lineups. What I would say is that the guys who are on the bottom part of our roster are not good enough to play in the NFL. And what we have on the field are only as starters in our secondary, with the exception of Denzel and maybe Mitchell. And even Mitchell would be like a nickel or a dime guy. They're not starting football players. They'd be on roster.
They're playing third and fourth. They're basically playing third and fourth string guys because of the injuries.
I have an update on Devin Bush.
Yeah, what's the story with that? That was a non-contact,
which
scares me.
ACL tear.
God damn it!
They fear he's out for the year.
I hate that, but whenever I see that, I mean, I was cringing because,
he cut hard on that left leg of his.
It just collapsed. When you see a non-contact knee collapse, that's what you think it is. You see it in basketball a lot, and you see it with wide receivers too. My question is, what makes you think Paul Brown would be in heaven anyway? All right, go ahead.
Hey, Moo.
Yes.
Let me ask you this. Guess who was the first Browns reporter to ask Kevin Stefanski if there was a quarterback controversy?
Mary Kay Cabot.
Mary Kay asked that?
Yeah, she also asked if there's anything into Odell Beckham screaming at his teammates on the sidelines.
Oh, so she ever since they became a pay site, she's provocateur pussy. I get it. Because that's not usually her style.
Unbelievable.
Usually, who would be the one who would do that? Who is the guy?
Tony Grossi.
Grossi would be the guy. That's right. Right, but not her. Wow.
I think people should just boycott Cleveland.com on principle. That's what I got to say with that. Jeez.
Yeah, so other than this, is there word on Brown's injuries of anybody who came out of the game that we just didn't see come out of the game?
Nothing I can tell.
Oh, no, but it's always bad news when Tony Romo and Nance spend the whole second half yucking it up about their kid photographs and shit. It was just an annoying broadcast to watch.
Yeah, Brian's right. If the Browns ever get Romo and Nance as the commentary team, just chalk it up as a big loss.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, go ahead and bet heavy on the opponent because those two are the fucking death knell. Every time they show up, it's a blowout loss.
It seems to be.
I hope they're not on the call for the Raiders game.
Yeah,
I would bet they're not.
TV. We will not be on national TV.
They're going to be following. They're going to be following the Ravens. From what I heard on the broadcast.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of Ravens pumping. So,
let me ask this: the question from Mary Kay Cabbage Head did she actually use the term quarterback controversy, or did she say, "Are you considering starting Case Keenum next week"? What was the question?
She said, from what I could read, she said, Are you she asked if Baker's starting next week, and he said as long as he's healthy.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and I mean, I don't know what the hell. I mean, are we supposed to? I mean, you can't possibly think that Case Keenum is anything more than a journeyman backup.
Right.
You can't be serious with that.
We're going to bench Baker Mayfield at 4-2. You know, the best start in the Browns fucking 21 years.
Well, that would be something maybe the organization would do. I don't know.
Real question is Tyrod Taylor or Case Keenum? That's the real question. Which backup's the better one that been with Baker?
Well, at least Case Keenum didn't get his lung punctured by a fucking doctor.
Yeah, and Justin, the Steelers and Ravens, and that's what we talk about the draft. Those two teams have just dominated the draft in our division, and we keep swinging and missing. Now, we have a new group in there, and we'll see if they do any better, but we didn't with Delpit. That's a bad break, but you don't know whether he would have been a player or not. You just don't know.
And Phillips, the linebacker from LSU, when he played, he's been playing well, but same story. He's been hurt.
We heard nothing from anybody on defense today. We heard nothing.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, Alistair, you can say that the scheme keeps changing. They plug in players that fit the scheme. But the problem is that the players that we draft don't go anywhere else and play in any scheme.
Yeah,
you have to understand that if what you were saying, and this is a common thing that Browns fans say, and believe me, I think continuing to change schemes is a horrible thing. But if these players were, I'd be much better in a different scheme. Well, tell me one guy that has left the Cleveland Browns that we drafted, name one guy who's made a fucking difference with a team that they went to. One.
I don't think you can, man.
I don't think you can either. So
with the best Hayden?
Mitchell Schwartz.
Yeah, there you go.
Mitchell Schwartz was a guy who was a free agent. Mitchell Schwartz was a guy who accepted money to play because the Browns didn't want to pay him.
Apparently, is doing okay in Pittsburgh. Apparently, there was a little bit of fuel.
No, but these were people that. I'm talking about people who are fresh draftees that the Browns give up on after 2 or 3 years.
Jannard Avery's been doing solid in Philadelphia.
Has he really? I mean, that's one guy.
Right.
Irving's become a decent offensive guard in Kansas City.
But he doesn't start.
No,
I think Corbett's starting.
Corbin's starting in the
LA
Rams.
Yeah. Austin Corbett, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, but nobody's going to sit there and tell you that Austin Corbett is like the next coming of Jeebus. I mean, come on. So again, I'm waiting to hear from Alistair. One guy, tell me one guy that is scheme indifferent, that had the talent to be a great player anywhere else. I mean, we've had so many Callaways and so many Manziels and so many people and Brandon Whedons, and we've had so many of these people and they don't go anywhere.
Who was that numpty we drafted in the first round? Coleman? We've even forgotten about
Corey Coleman.
Corey Coleman.
Terrible.
I mean, it got to the point where the fucking New England Patriots, Bill Belichick was saying, well, we better take a shot at this because, and they couldn't even reclaim these people. Exactly. They were so bad.
Corey fucking Coleman. Anyway, we got to do the Peter Alice play of the game. And I think it should be the James Washington touchdown, although the pick six is the obvious one to do.
Yeah, and that would be it. Oh, it's the beginning of the game, and here's an opportunity down 3-0 for the Browns to establish something. I'm Peter Alice from the BBC. And back to throw. Here's Mayfield, and he's looking. Oh, that ball was picked off by Minkah Fitzpatrick, who wasn't even in the zip code the week before in the entire game. So much so I was listening to Moo Head Radio, and they were making fun of Minkah Fitzpatrick.
They were.
And as far as I can see, he's still running. He's in the parking lot now, and nobody's touched him. Oh, Baker. Oh, if you're going to throw the ball 12 yards down the field, it has to be ahead of the receiver, not behind him, and not a double covered receiver.
The last Browns draft pick that's gone anywhere and has looked really good is Carl Nassib. See, remember they cut him. He went to Tampa Bay, and then
Is he still a situational rusher?
No, he's starting defensive end for the Raiders. They paid him $25 million.
Emmanuel
They paid
Ogba's
him
in Tampax Bay
$25
too.
Yeah, 3-year, $25 million. Yeah, and
Really?
Ogba's looking good too.
Yeah. Okay. So there would be, and Nassib came from Penn State.
Yep.
And he was long and lean, but they said
2016, yeah.
Great pass rush, but really couldn't play the run was the rap on him and why the Browns got rid of him. He flashed on the times that he would knock passes down and get into the backfield as far as the passing game was concerned, but he was strictly situational for the Browns.
They cut him in 2018. He went to Tampa, had 6.5 sacks and 12 tackles for loss in 2018, about the same in 2019, and then the Raiders gave him a 3-year, $25 million contract to start.
And how's he doing? How's he doing with the Raiders?
Let me check. Raiders stats. Defensive stats. Just a second.
Has Vernon even had a good game with us at all? Like even a decent game? That's a legit question.
Who knows, man?
I don't think so. And he's constantly hampered by a hamstring. It's but I'm seeing names coming up. Where did Callaway and Josh Gordon end up? Did their careers go up in smoke? Thank you very much for that.
Local weed store.
Yeah, exactly. You know what we need? Those players need Roundup. Somebody got to put some Roundup in their cereal.
Kill all the weed. They're fucking Cheech and Chong. That's who we get on this fucking team.
Yeah, what is the story with Danny Sheldon? Did somebody finally put him on a diet? Is he still playing in the league?
I don't know, but Nassib through 5 games has 1 pass deflection, 1 sack, and 10 tackles for loss. So not doing too hot so far.
$25 million, though. That'll feed the family, babe.
Danny Sheldon plays for the Detroit Lions.
That's a good place for him. Has he found his favorite restaurants there yet?
Hey, it worked for Jerry Ball.
He's got 17 tackles, 11 assisted, 6 solo, 1 pass deflection. In 2020.
He can't get off the ground. And what he says, every time they interview him after the game, he says, I don't remember eating that. Yeah. Lovely. And Hoyer, it makes you realize just how bad the quarterback position was. Imagine being small, slow, and not really fitting in. And allegedly, New England is the scheme that he understands. God help.
Yeah, right.
God help the Cleveland Browns. Well, I think that we've done a pretty good job of hacking and slashing. The real interesting question that will come out of this that we'll talk about on tomorrow's show is, can they put this behind them and get up? Because Cincinnati is so close to turning the corner, and they're finding ways to lose right now, but they see a team that is coming off a road loss that is going to be bedraggled at a quarterback who's got hurt ribs. And they're going to be very, very dangerous for the Browns. Having lost already once to the Browns, you would think that at this point, both teams should have gotten better. I think the Bengals are getting, and Joe Burrow are getting somewhat better. Burrow was only at about 14-24 when I saw his stat line. So it didn't look like he himself was doing huge damage. But, man, they were up solidly and gave it away. So
Joe Burrow finished 25 of 39 for 313 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, being forced probably toward the end of the game. How much did Mixon rush for?
Mixon, let me pull that back up. 18 attempts, 54 yards, and a touchdown.
You see, and that, they must have gotten some kind of special teams activity. Because I know when they were up, Joe Burrow was only 14-24.
8 rushes for 15 yards from Gio Bernard. But
our secondary is going to have to get healthy for that game, because Burrow picked us apart bad last time. we're already depleted. How much worse can it get?
Hey, Derek, I wanted to ask you a question before we get out of here.
Sure.
Your connection sounds a lot better. Your internet more stable these days?
Well, so here's the deal. I don't know when the last time I was on. I know it's been a while. I bought a new computer. I don't even know what you would call this thing. It's called a Focusrite, whatever. It's a little red box.
Yeah, it's a Scarlett, a Focusrite
Scarlett.
Yeah. That's exactly what I use. Isn't that funny? Is that the one? Just the one by one?
Yeah, it's just the one. So,
yeah, it's
but anyway, it's not the internet. Not really. It's just I've bought professional equipment. No, not professional, but better.
No, I mean,
better
Focusrite is a good name amongst musicians. So you're using a good preamp on your microphone, but you sound great on the air. So it's I wanted to point that out because we used to rip you all the time for that.
I know.
No, we're not ripping you anymore.
But here's the good deal. Once you turn 18, can make your own decisions and have money to go buy stuff, that's what happens.
Exactly. What would you remember what you paid for that device?
Oh boy. I think the Focusrite the computer was about 800. The Focusrite was, I want to say, like 150, something like that. And then with the mic and stuff, I've got like 3 mics because me and my friend started a podcast. You remember Dylan?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that fell through the roof because he decided to just. That's a long story, but anyway, I got my stuff back, and now I kind of got a lot of equipment to work with here because I went out and bought another mic.
What kind of mic are you using? What kind of mic? I'm just a geek when it comes to stuff like this.
It's a Samsung. I don't know. It's just one of their standard stuff.
I think it sounds great. I think you're doing a good job, and I hope you're going to join us when you get an opportunity. I know you're a working man and you don't have time for the weekday show, but hey, on Sundays we love to hear from you.
Well, now that me and I don't know if I could call him a friend. I like to think he is, but now that that's over, maybe I could probably jump on more. I don't know. Just depends.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, everybody, thanks a lot for tuning in to this post-game show. Sorry, the game.
I have somewhat of an announcement I want to kind of make here.
Yes,
me and Brian talked this morning, and I'm going to look at my schedule. I know Moo has a big thing here on Saturdays and Sundays with the halftime and post-game show. Me and Brian were thinking of getting together and doing like a little pre-game show the hour before the game. Kind of like a last minute thought kind of thing. I don't know if anybody would be interested in listening or not, but maybe something to add to the fun radio days of Moohead Radio Sundays.
Yeah, and again, I don't even have an operating site anymore. I'm just doing these shows and cranking them out. 3 destinations, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, and being archived on YouTube. But right now, if you want to do, how are you going to do the 2-on-2 show? Are you going to do it through Meet?
I have no idea. I haven't really looked at any.
Probably through StreamYard.
Yeah, probably just
seems to be working.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
It seems to be working fine. So
good. And go over there and find out because I know they have different packages and what I'm not sure what their promotional stuff is now, but that's good. That'll be fun. Let me know what you name the program, and I'll give a listen to it.
Okay, sounds good.
Coming out of the closet. Out of the closet. That's the program name.
Oh boy. I hope Bruce Jenner is not your first guest. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for tuning in to this kind of sorry post-game show. But keep your chin up. The real question again about our Browns is how they're going to react to this. How is Stefanski going to get the team prepared for a Bengals team and not turn this into a losing landslide? We're going to see.
Still winning record.
We'll be back on Moohead Radio tomorrow, 6:00 Eastern Standard Time to talk more about that very subject. Until tomorrow, hasta la vista, Pasture Heads. Good night.